Auburn is sending the all-out blitz against Baylor again, but this time it's to poach one of their coaches.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day in the #1 sports podcast network in the world, right here. It is a Wicker Wednesday here, joined by Sydney Wicker. I'm Cam Stewart. There we go. That was tough to put together. Today, we're talking about Auburn going after Baylor for the second time this season, and they are really looking at Jake Spavital. Do they have a chance to steal him out from under Baylor's nose? And we talk about winners and losers in the Big 12. Has BYU just been a fraud the whole time? It's about time we asked that question since they've lost one game. And does Dave Aranda and does this team need to be the underdog for them to succeed? All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Sydney, we have heard it from Zach Blackerby, the host of the Locked On Auburn podcast, which those of us who have followed this team all season long through the great Locked On Podcast Network have heard a lot from this year. And he was talking about the new head coaching candidates for Auburn. And the name Jake Spavital came up. It was not as the head coach, but saying, hey, we've tried the offensive thing a couple times in a row. Brian Harsin and Hugh Freeze didn't work. Why don't we go with a defensive guy? And he brings on a dynamite, potentially top 10 offensive coordinator. They're not going for Baylor's defensive coordinator. That's not the direction they're going. They're looking at Jake Spavital. With what we have seen from Jake in 2 years at Baylor, does that make sense that potentially after a head coaching change that he would make a lateral move, continuing to be an offensive coordinator, but this time in the SEC?
I don't think it's a lateral move at all. I think that would be a step up for him to be in an SEC style offense. I think it would be huge for him in his career and probably where he wants to go. And I think it'd be a good jump for him. It makes sense. Like if he were to take a jump, it's going to have to be something like that. It's going to have to be at a good school or an SEC school, somewhere with like a little bit of a higher caliber and next step up. And so I think for Jake, if he gets the call, I don't know why he wouldn't entertain it.
So do you think, to go off of that real quick, do you think he could get a head coaching job from what he's done at Baylor so far and all the context that comes with the situation that Baylor's in right now?
No, I think he's at best looking at another offensive coordinator position, just at maybe a different conference like SEC, Big Ten. But I don't see a head coach for right now.
Okay, not even like a Tulane if they go and get John
Honestly,
Summerall.
not really.
And I understand. I'm just,
yeah.
I'm not trying to say like, hey, should he be the head coach at Penn State, Sydney? Should he be like, no.
Yeah, no, I don't think yet. I don't think quite yet. Maybe in a couple years, maybe after he takes another jump, being a great offensive coordinator somewhere else, but I don't think yet.
And I think it's interesting that Auburn is talking about it this way. Zach Blackerby and company are talking about it this way of like, hey, if we've got a defensive guy who can take over and take the reins and make us a good defensive football program, let's bring in a guy who has been a head coach before, has led some good offenses everywhere he's been as an OC. And obviously most recently they saw it up close and personal in week 1 with the Baylor Bears. And saying, hey, you get the keys to the offense. Like, you run the offense. I think it's interesting because Dave Aranda basically did the same thing before last season. Like, that's exactly what he did. And I would say Spav has done his job. It hasn't quite worked in perfect harmony here at Baylor. So is that kind of a red flag to those Auburn fans who are thinking that would be a good fix for their head coach OC situation?
I don't know.
Or is it just completely different? Is it just completely different?
I do feel like it's kind of different. I was thinking about that before we jumped on to do the podcast. Auburn is just searching for answers right now. And I think with anything they could have saw out of Spavital in the week 1 game is just the fact that his offense is so diverse in what he can do. And that wasn't even Baylor's offense at their best.
That's a good point.
I think it's a really good chance to do something new, bring in a guy who's obviously had pretty good success. It'll also only help too when we see how many guys get drafted from this class offensively and seeing what those next steps look like for those guys. But yeah, no, I feel like Auburn's just in a different place right now. I do think it would be a great step up for Spav. But I think you kind of have to revamp the whole program overall. And I think he'd be a great voice and a great leader to do so.
Mm. And an interesting thing going back to the SEC context too, is like, this isn't the SEC from 10 years ago. You know, I know a lot of the people watching it who don't follow the conference very closely are like, okay, this could be revolutionary for the SEC to bring in an offense that's this fast, that's this high scoring. And it's really not. In fact, I'd say Auburn is behind the times on that. When you look at the last few years, obviously with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, what Alabama was doing at the quarterback position, even in the last few years of Saban, let alone actually better than the first couple of years of Kalen DeBoer. Really, I mean, this is going back 5 or 6 years now, but Joe Burrow at LSU, like this has been the conference that has been at the forefront offensively, even as much defensively as they have been for decades. And so it's interesting in that Auburn might be thinking, we've been late to the party on this. We need kind of a dynamic offensive mind like this. We thought we had one in Hugh Freeze, obviously, but we need to go out and get one that can put up the points the way Baylor has. Do you think that is something that is transferable to the SEC, a conference that he's really only coached in for like 1 year when A&M had just made the jump? Back in 2012 and 2013, he was on the staff there. Is this Auburn saying, man, we really got to catch up? We thought we had the dude a couple of times in a row. Now we look at these offensive guys at Alabama. We'll probably have one at Florida. They've got one at Arkansas. Is this Auburn saying we need to catch up?
I think maybe, when you put it like that, yeah, it makes sense. Like, they do need to catch up. They need to, if you want to be the Alabamas, the Georgias, those that are playing for national championships or even just competing with them, you got to, their offenses have, well, maybe not Georgia's, but Alabama's has really been elite. Yeah. Like, you mentioned Ole Miss and what Lane Kiffin does. I've never seen a faster offense ran than what Ole Miss does. Like, you as a media person, you got to be ready to get that camera ready to go. As soon as you get a good highlight, you save it, you go, because it is so quick. Yeah, and just like overall, the SEC just like continues to get more competitive each year, and just there's never a weekend where there's not an SEC game that you don't have circled on your calendar. There's always like one really good elite matchup that you're looking forward to. So it's about putting those points up on the board. It's about being explosive, and that's exactly who Spav is. He's a guy who does that and who's shown that. And so if Auburn's ready for that and ready to explode and maybe take a different turn, then yeah, that could maybe be a saving grace for them.
Last question on it then. We don't know how this is going to end up with the Baylor coaching staff, much as we may think we know. We don't know. And I've been fooled before, 2023. I didn't think Jake Spavital was going to be here next year at the beginning of this season, because I'm thinking he's going to have a good enough year that he's going to be able to go somewhere else. And I think I said on the show that could well be as an offensive coordinator somewhere else. In fact, I probably leaned more towards that than being a head coach. If he doesn't go to Auburn to be with John Summerall or whatever defensive guy they bring in on the Plains, is he a part of this Baylor staff next year, independent of what they do with Dave Aranda?
Such a good question. Something I also was thinking about. I don't know. I think he's definitely going to get some calls.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be if he wants to go, and I really don't see him a part of the staff next year.
He never stays places long, by the way. Texas State was 4 years. Obviously, that was the head coach. Cal for 1 year after that. And before that, you got to go West Virginia, 2 seasons. Cal, 1 season. A&M, 2 seasons. 3 seasons, excuse me. West Virginia, 2 seasons. Oklahoma State, 1. Houston, 1. Tulsa, 1. So this is a guy who does not stick around a long time. Now, obviously, 4 years was as the head coach. You do stick around if you're the head coach. But I think this is I think Jake Spavital, like you said, I think he's going to get some calls whether it's Auburn or not. You know, there are a lot of big-time jobs open, and there is nothing a head coach likes more than having a dynamite coordinator who has been doing it a long time and doesn't need his hand held for anything and doesn't need a philosophy shoved down his throat. He's got a philosophy. And there's a lot of coaches, head coaches, that are going to like having Jake Spavital on their staff. Look at the resume. Okay, so if it's not Auburn, it could well be Florida. It could be Virginia Tech would be, that'd be lateral. It could be Penn State. You know, it could be any number of these. It could be LSU, right? It could be any number of jobs in the SEC or the Big Ten that would pay him some more money and give him a better avenue to being a head coach than Baylor would right now. So if it's Auburn, that would be quite interesting. Spavletics going out to the Plains, and we would, of course, see him game 1 in the 2026 season in Hotlanta. Boy, that would be interesting. Our BYU frauds. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Baylor. But first, let's talk about Supply House. Definitely not frauds. I can say that with absolute certainty. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, you get your crew moving forward when you go with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Nothing faster than Supply House and the next day delivery. Their part finder tools and 3D schematics save you hours on jobs where every detail matters, which is most jobs. Join the free Trademaster program today, and you're going to score some serious perks. I'm talking priority shipping, lower prices than normal, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHSupplyHouse, SH College, the number 5, for 5% off your first order. Again, one word, SH College 5, all caps. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Back here on Locked On Baylor on a Wicker Wednesday. Still coming off Baylor's bye week, looking ahead to the Utah Utes coming into town for the second time ever on this Saturday. But that doesn't mean that we didn't watch football this weekend. There's nary a weekend that goes by that Sydney Wicker is not watching football. She's loving all the spring leagues, too. It's just football all year round. She's going there. She's watching them. So let's talk about what else happened in the Big 12 this weekend. It's our winners and losers segment. Sydney, do you remember which one we started with last week?
We started with losers, I think.
Do you want to start with losers again?
Yeah, if you want.
All right. Sydney Wicker, who is your biggest loser of the weekend?
My biggest loser of the weekend has to go to Baylor's rival, TCU.
Yeah.
Come on, TCU. What are you doing? You're playing a kind of deflated Iowa State team, if we're being honest. Just kind of falling flat, and you're in a close one at home. A lot of good things working in your favor, and what do? Crap the bed. Are you kidding me?
Big time. That is a tough loss to Iowa State at 20-17. The thing that's interesting about it too is if they had won that game, they're not like one step away from Arlington, but they're in that next tier. Like they're in a discussion, and the only team ahead of them that had beaten them was Arizona State, and Arizona State's going to lose some games. without Sam Levitt at quarterback. So that does, I think that definitely checks out as the big loser of the Big 12 this weekend.
And mind you, Josh Hoover had over 300 yards in that game, and you still lose. That's like when Sawyer has a 400-yard performance and Baylor just like can't see. Like it's you. Come on, you got to win.
We know the feeling. We do know the feeling. And we kind of said that a lot in the buildup, right? Like both those teams, Baylor and TCU, you like the prereq is having a really good game from your quarterback. Like that's the beginning, and hopefully then you could get the rest of the things on board. And that's been TCU's story the last 2 seasons, and largely Baylor's story the last 2 seasons as well. God, I hate the symmetry between those two teams. My loser for the first time all year. My loser is the BYU Cougars. Look, I'm not going to say they're frauds. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. I think a lot of us that follow.
You're gonna hint at it, but you're not gonna call them frauds.
Like, because I've thought about it. Okay, I've slept on it in the commercial break. I really slept on it, and I just think that's harsh. And I think a lot of us that followed the Big 12 knew what BYU was. A lot of us did, and we talked about it on this show, so I know we both did. Of like, that's a good football team. It is all the way around. They got kind of a tough hand by dismissing their quarterback in July and bringing in a freshman who's very raw, very unpolished, and didn't do some of the same things that Jake Retzloff did on the field. And like, you knew that they were going to pick them up with a run game and some good skill position players and an excellent defense. That's just not potentially going to win you the conference when Texas Tech is there. You know, a couple of years ago, it might have won you the conference. In fact, it sounds a lot like Baylor in 2021, which did win the conference. But when you put them up against the talent that Texas Tech has, it just wasn't really a fair fight. Like you just knew that at some point the magic was going to kind of run out for BYU, and give them a ton of credit. Like, all it took was facing the team that is head and shoulders the best in the Big 12 and facing them on their home field to get there. So I'm putting them as the loser, not as like shame loser, but like, what a bummer kind of loser. You know what I mean? Like, they shouldn't feel bad about that, but that's a downer.
They were obviously perfect going into that game, so a little bit of a reality check, if you will. And Tech, I just feel like, showed dominance so early on in that game, and kind of like an answer Tech. I think it was a stamp Tech like needed to make, you know, and they made it. And if we transition into our winners now, that's why I have to pick Tech as my winner this week. It was a big win, truly dominant win. Just looking at the final score alone, they did it in front of Patrick Mahomes too. Like, they had all the momentum.
They won in front of him,
all the momentum in their favor in Lubbock, and I think it was huge. I mean, they had a tough task at BYU's. I don't think they're frauds one bit. I think they're still a really good football team. But yeah, I think Tech really showed that they are continue to be one of the top dogs in the conference, and that they really deserve to keep playing it and to be ranked as high as they are.
I think we can both agree, but correct me if I'm wrong, outside of Tech, mind the gap, the next two teams of the Big 12 would be Utah, BYU, and whatever combination you want to put them. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, totally fair. I agree with that.
In the two head-to-head matchups, Texas Tech plus 46 and have allowed 2 touchdowns. Like, much as it might pain me, thank God it's not TCU or UT. I can handle Tech. But this is as good a Tech team as we've probably ever seen. And it's their biggest win since Crabtree breaking free on the sideline November 1st of 2008. Like, that is how long it's been since they've had a win that was this big. And unfortunately, because, you know, of the way the Big 12 was this year. It wasn't against the number one team in the country like it was in 2008. But that was obviously an excellent team. It was kind of a classic Mike Leach defensive team in that regard, but great offensively with the air raid. This team is so well-rounded, so stout. I mean, it's probably the best Tech defense ever. And this legitimately could be, like, some people might think this is hyperbole. This could legitimately be the best Texas Tech football team of all time. Like, they're really this good. I don't know how many times in their history they've been like legitimate, like this is a top 5 team in America. And I think they are that good. And this was the closest that anybody was going to come to them in terms of just maybe Utah as well. But that was obviously early in the season. And they crushed them. And now there's potentially a setup where Tech could play UT in the college football playoff in Lubbock and the winner faces A&M, which would be the greatest thing to ever happen to the state, I must say, since they gained their independence in 1845. That would be phenomenal. Deserved winner of the week, Texas Tech. And the enemy of thy enemy is my friend. So I'm going to consider Tech a friend for now. My big winner of the week, because I think we gave it to him one time in week 2, but because they just need a little bit of good vibes right now. West Virginia. West Virginia gets the win in Motown over Colorado, who's not a good team. That, in fact, might propel West Virginia over Colorado as like the 13th or 14th best team in the Big 12. Don't sleep on Arizona. That was the other one that I was considering. But I just wanted to give West Virginia a bone, although they might have more winners of the week from me than Arizona does this year. I looked to check their schedule afterwards at 4-6, being like, could they possibly squeak out 2 upsets and get to bowl eligibility? They cannot. Their last game is at home, but it is against the Texas Tech Red Raiders. It would need to be one of the biggest upsets in the last decade or two in the Big 12 for that to be a reality. So I'm going to give West Virginia the win for now, because I don't think they're going to get one again this season. So that's the winners and losers. Shout out to West Virginia. Shout out to BYU for not being frauds. And shout out to Texas Tech, because I have a feeling, Sydney, in a month and a half from now, there's going to be a lot of us rooting for Texas Tech. If those are the matchups, especially, there's going to be a lot of people in Tech's corner. And I'll be one of them. Will they be underdogs, though? That's a good question. Does Baylor need to be underdogs for any game they're playing right now? Let's get back to the Bears and answer that question next on Locked On Baylor. But first, we're going to be brought to you by FanDuel. I guarantee it. It's the way that I make money on the weekends. And look, the NBA season is here. You don't want to miss out on it. There's no better place to get in on all the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And all 3 of you Texas teams have something to be excited about. Don't let it hit you on the way out, Nico Harrison. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Let me say that again. New customers, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. I know this is going to surprise you, Sydney. So please, are you sitting down?
I'm sat.
Okay. I just don't want this to overwhelm you with shock. Baylor's going to be an underdog this weekend. I know. I know.
Stop it.
I know. They're facing probably the second best, at worst, third best team in this conference, and someone who is still in the picture for the college football playoff. They're going to be underdogs. And then they're going to go to Arizona the next weekend. They're probably going to be underdogs. And then they're going to face what is right now an 8-2 Houston team at home to close out the season. They're probably going to be underdogs. And so now the question is this. Is that where you want to be if you're Baylor right now? Zach Smith of the Waco Trib asked Dave Aranda that very question, and here's what the ball coach had to say.
If you're underdogs this week, you might be all 3 games to end the season. Do you like that? Does the team embrace kind of that underdog mentality?
I try to let them know. And I think this is a game that we need. This is a game that we have to play well in. This is a game that we've got guys that want to play at the next level and want to do all the things. They need this game, and we as a program need this game. So it's an important one.
So he didn't really answer the question. So I'd like Sydney Wicker to answer the question. From what we've seen so far this year, and certainly what we saw in the back half of last year, it seems obvious to me, but does this Baylor team need to be an underdog to get the best out of them?
Kind of seems like it.
Like big underdogs, right? Like they need to be pushed into a corner like Baby and Dirty Dancing. Like they need to be that in order to be Dalton.
Yeah, I think
Dalton's
about...
Roadhouse. I don't remember Patrick Swayze's name in that.
It's okay.
That'd be pretty badass if Dalton was in a crossover at Dirty Dancing, but that's not for this show. That's not for this show.
I just think so much. The first time I was really introduced to this Baylor team was when they were kind of at their worst last year. And then we saw the turnaround, but they were underdogs from that point moving forward. And then they started winning games. And then it was like, well, is it legit? Like it kept being questioned until they just kept doing it and having answers. Then they start off the season playing Auburn, tough task. You go into that kind of as underdogs. And then now we're at this point of the season where it's just like, okay, Baylor, you had your chance. Like, what do you got left? And I like that he had mentioned, it's not just about like embracing the underdog mentality. It's like these guys want to have futures after this as well. Every game that they get looks on matters because that could help them when it comes to the draft and things like that. And I think that's important. But I kind of think Baylor needs that chip. It's been missing that little extra bit of sass or attitude or whatever, swagger. We need to see it. And I think being the underdogs can help. And sometimes it's almost like good to lean into because it's like the expectation's not there.
Yeah.
So what do you have to lose?
I think they need to put the swagger and the sass together. Like if this Baylor team needs swass in order to win, I think. But you're right. Like they do need like everyone to count them out. And that's kind of frustrating as a fan because that's not where we were earlier this season. It's not where we should have been earlier this season. And not to take it all back to Dave Aranda's job security, but I think that's what a lot of fans are looking for of like, can we get a guy who just gets us up every week? Like, can we get a guy that can use an old, Nick Saban, Bill Belichick tactic and tell the best football team on the planet that nobody believes in them and that they need to come out with their hair on fire? Can we get some of that? Because clearly Baylor does play well when it comes to that. And they're going to need it this weekend because they're going to be underdogs against Utah. Again, I don't want to keep overwhelming you with this news, but they are going to be underdogs this weekend against the Utah Utes. But let us know.
More time for the people who have missed it, Cam.
Yeah, guys, I need everybody to be sitting down right now. Underdogs. Should they be underdogs? Yes, but let me know if you don't think so in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about this game this weekend, who the winners and losers were, and how you would feel about Jake Spavital potentially leaving for an SEC friend/foe and rival in week 1 next year. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Then be sure to like, subscribe, help us on the path towards 5,000 subscribers. We're getting awfully close. We're trying to get there by the end of the season. And thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. Thank you to Sydney Wicker for joining on Wednesday once again.
Thank you, Cam. Thanks for letting me be on the #1 podcast.
I mean, look, #1 Baylor football show on YouTube, #1 podcast, sports podcast network in the world. We're dealing with #1s here. We are dealing with #1s. And a day 1 from Wednesday is Sydney Wicker. So thanks so much for joining. Thank you guys for joining. And we will see you tomorrow on another episode of your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.